MDMA, LSD, Molly, mind-altering drugs, psychedelic drugs. An overdose claims more lives every year, and its latest victim are school children across India.
The recent crackdown on the drug abuse in Hyderabad clearly shows that the drug abuse is in fact rampant in the country, let alone Hyderabad. Now coming back to Bangalore, here in the IT capital of India, clearly we can see that Bengaluru is definitely no exception. In fact, over the last couple of years, if you see in 1 year, they have more than 300 cases registered with the police as far as the narcotics center is concerned.
A drug racket that was busted in Hyderabad blew the cover. 13-year-old school children among the exhaustive clientele of the drug mafia.
We've arrested 8 people, 6 of which are BTech graduates, techies, working in relatively good positions in good companies across Hyderabad. We've got one gentleman who runs a car rental agency, and one of the major arrests today morning was of a gentleman who's a hotel management graduate and who's running an event management company. All youngsters, relatively young, technically qualified, well-educated, well-paid individuals.
Children as young as 13 are falling prey to these lethal drugs. The gravity of the situation has forced the government to step in, and advisories have been issued to schools and colleges directing them to monitor the movements of their students and sensitize them on the adverse effects of drug usage. Hyderabad, Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai. Students across the country are falling easy prey to drug abuse. The Telangana government has merely sounded the bugle, but the real fight against drug abuse is far from over. Mirror Now report.
This is such an important conversation to have tonight on the urban debate. If our children as young as 13 are gaining access to very, very serious drugs, and somehow they're gaining access to the drugs on the school field, outside of their schools, in their WhatsApp groups, among the groups of friends that they hang out with, it seems like the parents right now don't know how to tell. Here's the question we should ask ourselves tonight. Do we know how to tell if our teenager has taken LSD? Do you know what the telltale signs are, what the red flags are? Remember, what happened in Hyderabad was shocking. 10 people have been arrested, and they were arrested because the police discovered on one of their cell phones, the first one who was arrested, on one of their cell phones, he had an inordinate number of teenagers as his WhatsApp friends. When the police began to investigate these conversations, they realized that these teenagers, 13, 14, 15, in high school, were buying drugs. Drugs that are sometimes worth between 4,000 and 6,000 rupees per blot paper. There were also instances in some reports coming out of Hyderabad, although not fully confirmed, that some of these young girls who couldn't afford it were trading favors, sending photographs of themselves unclothed to these drug peddlers in exchange for drugs because they were addicted. They didn't know how to maintain the addiction. In most of these cases, the police discovered that the parents did not know. It's a shocking reality for us to come face to face with. To ask ourselves if we know if our teenager or our young adult at home has access to drugs in any way. Are they taking drugs recreationally in their friends' houses, at parties? When they go out on Saturday night, do you know what they're consuming? Can you tell by looking at them? A lot of these new chemical drugs don't have the same side effects. It's not about pupils dilating anymore. Tonight we're going to talk about how serious this problem is and how you as a parent can protect your child. Once we found out about Hyderabad, we made a series of checks across various cities. We found out from the police in various cities, in Bangalore, in Mumbai, in Delhi, that this is a rampant problem all across the country. But the biggest piece of information we bring to you tonight is brought to us by our senior editor, Mandar Fanse, who has in fact spoken with a drug peddler right here in the greater Mumbai region, who has talked to Mandar about who he sells these drugs to, and why he sells them, and why young people right now are willing to pay any amount of money to access their next high. Take a look.
We were just tracking you for a long time now, and basically we wanted to know. I mean, you have been into it, and you know what exactly the rates are like, and it is really is it really penetrated across the schools and the young boys and girls?
Yes, I'd say, because this is a drug which is easily available in all the areas. Mm-hmm. So most of the school students have contacts with the elders, I'd say. People who are in the early 25s or early 20s, they abuse them most of the times, and it's easily available in streets nowadays. Mm-hmm. So it's available in like 1,000, 1,500 or 1,800 rupees. Mm-hmm. So yes, it is penetrated in most of the students across.
So nowadays the drugs are easily available, you say?
Yes,
everywhere, right from MD to all the rest of the hazardous drugs. And this, what is this paper which you guys are into it?
Yes, paper is LSDs. LSDs is lysergic acid diphenamide. So this is a psychedelic drug. Mostly used in psychedelic parties, trance parties.
How does it affect? I mean, can you explain the effect of it? Do you have some of the papers which has been sold now?
Yes, I can show it to you. It's I just have some. Let me just pull it out for you. Okay. This is how it looks like. Mm-hmm. You can see. It's very small. It's okay. Not easy to identify. Okay. And it's easily available, as I said. Uh-huh. It's like it's like marijuana. Mm-hmm. People buy it for 60. This is for 1,200.
Mm-hmm. But why you guys are into it? I mean, why the children are really targeted in the schools, and this is not the age when children should be introduced with such hazardous things.
That's correct. It's business, you see. Because nowadays money is all that's required in the world. If you have money, you have everything. And children are easy to target because they are not sensible as of now. Until you're 21, you do not have that much of sense. So that is the reason they are targeted. And from children is where you get a lot of business.
Well, that is in fact the truth. That was a drug peddler that our senior editor Mandar Fansi spoke with just an hour ago, telling us what he's selling, why he's selling it, and why he's selling it to children. Remember, we have information now to tell us, confirmation that this happens in Delhi, in Bangalore, in Mumbai, in Pune, in Hyderabad, we know for sure, in Chennai, that our school-going children are becoming targets for this sort of drugs. Our phone lines are open to parents and anyone else who wants to call in right now and talk about what's going on. But joining me on the show this evening, R.P. Singh, National Secretary of the BJP. Mr. Singh, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time. Dr. Yusuf Merchant is the founder, president of the Drug Abuse Information, Rehabilitation and Research Center. Mr. Dhanraj Vanjari is the former Assistant Commissioner of the Police in Mumbai. Vikram Singh, former DCP Uttar Pradesh. B.D. Banerjee is a retired narcotics officer who joins us in Kolkata. Rajshri Nathu is a co-coordinator of the Parent Teachers Association United Forum. Achutya Rao is a child rights activist who joins us in Hyderabad. Dr. Sagar Mundara, psychiatrist and youth wing head of the Indian Medical Association. Murli Gadam is a concerned parent in Hyderabad. I welcome all of you to this conversation. I'm going to start with the police officers. Mr. Dhanraj Vanjari, please tell me, in your experience, do you believe that students are now becoming specific targets to drug peddlers?
Of course, students are the specific target for 2-3 reasons. Number one, this is the age where they are curious to know about their sense of pleasure. What makes me to have more and more pleasure? They call it a Kala chemistry. Kala chemistry means qualification of thoughts. If your thoughts are more qualified, your pleasure quotient is more, and that's why these youngsters are targeted, because they are curious. Second important thing, they will not tell it to anybody because they think that this is a problem, and they have been enough intimidation that if they will tell anywhere outside, there will be a blemish upon them.
No, but where are they getting this much money from? If it costs 1,000, or 1,500 rupees up to 6,000 rupees per, a cellophane piece of paper, the blot paper that we saw, where are students getting this money from in high school?
Pocket money from the parent. I had a case when I was working at the senior inspector where Kappared police station. There, the teenager boys were allowed to enter in the joint where they pose in a forged manner that they are students of second year BA. And there was a racket who used to print those college ID for them, and with their photograph used to give them so easily they can get an entry. So 14, 15, 16 years boys were seeking entry as a graduate student, undergraduate student in such joints, and they were giving this
they were
type
getting
of
access
drugs.
to drugs.
The question you asked, that money, definitely there is a question of money where they being feeded by the parent as their pocket money. Parent has a bounden duty if they want to stop this menace, that my child is using the money where and how much money should I pay him?
How much money should we give our children?
I think it is more of a guilt conscious for the parents.
I mean, nowadays parents are not available to the child because everybody is not working in a government institution and in jobs that they have a 9 to 5 job. Now they come home, they are coming late, they are going early, they have jobs, they have got targets, and they spend less time. So what they do, it is type of a thing like, okay, the child is asking for money, give him the money. That is a guilt conscious on the parents' part that it is playing on them, that they are giving money to their children in place of time. And they are not talking with children as such because there is no communication.
So you're saying give more time, give less money?
Less money, of course, but if justified money, parents should know what is justified money. If it is actually needed. I mean, if the child is just going to a nearby school and coming back home, he doesn't need 1,500 rupees as pocket money. He can ask the parents as and when he wants them. And when we were growing up, we had a very good support system as a community. When we were staying, where we were staying, in that lane, all the elders, I mean, you could have no better surveillance system than the elders in the society.
You're keeping an eye on you. Let me bring in Vikram Singh. Vikram Singh, and I want you to comment on this. The Hyderabad police have sent out an advisory to 26 high schools and 27 colleges, and that's nearly all of them in Hyderabad, telling these schools that, listen, we have discovered that students are the clientele of this nexus of drug peddlers right now and these drug peddlers seem like normal friends. It's very difficult for parents to tell that these are drug peddlers because they're on WhatsApp groups. There are groups of 4 or 5 kids, and among that, one of them is a drug peddler. They've said sensitize the parents, sensitize the students to say no to drugs, sensitize teachers. Do you believe that this is the route the police should be taking?
Faye, let me tell you from my personal experience, this is a very, very scary situation, and all of us, and a wake-up call. The Hyderabad police has done the right thing, and the first time I encountered in my career that this has assumed epidemic proportions was in 1990 in Agra, and this is the story of the whole country. We have now more than 4 million plus drug addicts in the country, and most of them are students. The seductive nature, the euphoric behavior are primary reasons why they take to it. Now the modus operandi is that the ice cream vendors outside the school gates, the churanwalas, the chaatwalas, they develop as drug peddlers. The first 2 doses are free. The third, on which the child gets hooked on a permanent basis, irreversible manner, on a one-way traffic to disaster, is then on a payment basis. And our learned panelists were kind and magnanimous enough to say that they get it from the pocket money. My own experience is that teenagers indulged in violent crime, stealing from home, stealing their mothers and sisters' jewelry, stealing from the father's purses. I can give you any number of such cases, a horrific story, and I'm happy that you're raising up the story. The police not only need to sensitize, but the underworld, the NDPS Act of India is one of the more strict and more punishment-oriented acts that we have in the country.
Vikram Singh, would you say if a teenager is caught stealing, that is a red flag? Immediately, parents should worry?
Indeed. Unnatural thirst for money, unnatural requirement for money, as you very rightly said, this teenager, what is my requirement? a couple of burgers here and there, a couple of ice creams, that doesn't translate to more than 500, 1,000 rupees. But if the child is managing something, stealing or selling his mother's jewelry, that is a wake-up call and the cause of alarm and concern.
Right. I want to bring in Dr. Yusuf Merchant right now. Dr. Merchant, tell us, what are the other telltales, red flag signs? How do we tell if our child is on drugs? What sort of behavior patterns should we be looking for?
Okay, it's very easy to identify if your child is on drugs. But let me tell you, there's a drug tsunami happening in schools all over the country, firstly. If your child has developed a new set of friends suddenly, if he has developed an owlish sleep pattern, which means he keeps awake in the night and sleeps in the day, if you find loose tobacco around him anywhere, if you find his mood fluctuating, either he's very happy or he's very sad, it means that there is something wrong happening with him. And the nature of the drug, please understand. In earlier, why are there so many children who are drug addicts now? Why are schools being targeted now? In the past, drugs used to be smoked or injected. Now the newer drugs, whether they're talking about LSD, which is acid, or meow meow, it has to be sniffed. They don't even have to smoke. And the effect of a drug like meow meow passes off completely within 1.5 hours, which means you can take drugs and come back and nobody would know. I personally think it is because parents can't give time to their children. They substitute it with money, and that is what's creating the mess. That's point number one. Point number two, I've had children who are 13 and 14 years old who are on drugs for 2 years, and their parents don't even know. How can that be possible? So I think parents are, the situation has become such that both parents have to work. Both are looking for promotions. They leave the kids. They think the schools are supposed to give them values, and it's not happening because the children have to interact, they have to be connected, they have to be bonded with the parents. So I would say that there is no bonding between the parents and the children, which is the primary reason why children are going on to this fatal kind of experimentation. It's happening all over the country.
Well, that's a very, very grim and scary picture we're painting. Let me just bring in RP Singh. Mr. Singh, from what we understand, and here we have, Dr. Yusuf Merchant, who's the founder president of the Drug Abuse Information Cell, who's telling us that this is rampant across the country. We have a drug peddler who's spoken to one of our journalists, actually showing us a piece of cellophane. It's how will a parent look through the school bags or the clothes of a teenager for a piece of cellophane that looks like this? Is this also on the radar of the government right now? Is this something that the government notices as a massive crisis level situation?
Well, what you are saying is some piece of cellophane, but what I see, what I could see on a phone, I would like to show to you. This looks like some emoji of a smiley. And then no parent can ever come to know what it is. Some paper which has smiley scribed on it, and you can easily use it. But it's a very serious problem, and then it's not what you are talking about. It's much more grave and much more serious. I know students who, you're talking about some 1,500 rupees. Sir, 20 rupees, 30 rupees, you get that whiteners. And all, especially, you're talking about high-end schools. I'm talking about the schools which are government schools, and especially people who are in who come from clusters, who come from small town areas. They use whiteners and they sniff whiteners. And what age? MCD. I'm talking about the primary school. The primary school children I am daily. Because I work I have 21 clusters in my constituency, and I constantly work with the police in those areas. But they're young boys who is in 3rd standard, 4th standard, 5th standard, they sniff whiteners, and from there probably it extends further. Yes, it is a very serious problem, and then it needs to be looked into because it's moreover a law and problem. And I really congratulate the Hyderabad police for taking that action which they have taken. It's a quite proactive action. But other than that, what I feel, I'll after this complete program, probably I'll try to reach out to our HRD minister. Probably somewhere at a very young stage, this need to be started as a learning process, a chapter or a process against drugs. Making children aware what can be a use of drug, how can it hamper the career, how can it hamper their complete life. And also,
I want to point out, and I'm going to ask this question.
When a child gets a small bottle,
Right. We grew up, when we were growing up in the 80s and perhaps the people even before that, there was a massive campaign of say no to drugs. We were told this repeatedly by our teachers. We were told this repeatedly by our parents. Is that no longer happening? Has the media not done its job of actually passing on that information to children and telling them to say no to drugs, to remind them, to warn them about, you know, the effects of drugs? Dr. Sagar Mandara, you know, like Vikram Singh said, and our research, you know, the person who does research on the show also said, 4 or 5 uses is as long as it takes for someone to get addicted. Once they get addicted, they constantly need a bigger and a bigger high every time, and they will go looking for a bigger and a bigger high. But why is this so scary?
See, first of all, it is scary because, as many of the panelists said, that once you're addicted to it, and it only takes 3 to 4 instances, then turning away and turning back is almost impossible. You need to have extensive therapy, which is very, very rarely available. And the second thing is, even with therapy, there is no guarantee in most of the drugs cases that you'll really come back to the normal, because these chemicals, these drugs affect certain parts of the brain which just get you hooked on. It's very, very difficult to get out of that. Now,
and is there a physiological risk as well?
There is a physiological risk,
That's
of
why
course.
It has been called psychotropic substances.
Exactly. It basically alters the way you perceive a certain thing. The day it starts altering your basic perception, your thought process gets deviated, and you no longer can think rationally, logically, what is good for you, what is bad for you. The only thing that you can see is that I want to get that kick again because it is so good. That is what the addict feels. I want to get that kick again, and for that they can go to any extent. That is cheating, that is they can steal from their parents, they can hit people, they can do anything under the sun to get it.
Dr. Yusuf Merchant, there is of course the risk of overdose that we should all be fully aware of as parents as well.
Fia, I'd like to say one thing. This drug that was caught in Hyderabad, LSD, the dosage is 0.04 micrograms. 1 microgram is 1/10,000th of a gram. Right. And imagine, with random blotting papers with smileys you're putting them, some of them get extra. It's absolutely dangerous. For a thing like LSD, probably once would be enough. I personally think the government is doing a very good job on supply reduction, on enforcement, but they are doing absolutely nothing on drug demand reduction. Till the demand is there, the supply will be met, and we know the story. So the government should actually invest in drug prevention programs, target specific groups with different information, and see that they're tiers of prevention, 4th standard, 8th standard, 9th standard, college, junior college, because we have to get the children before the drug addicts do. Absolutely. We have to give the children the data on drugs before the drug peddlers do. That is the sense of urgency. We have to stop this drug tsunami. It will wipe out the youth.
Right. That is what we do. Let me just bring in Mr.
The question here moves around why the teenagers are targeted. Let me tell you, this thing, war against drug, is going on since ages, but till today, in spite of having stringent laws, NDPS Act 83 and all amendments, we are unable to control this. Why? Because, as Dr. Merchant said, there is demand. Demand quotient is increased through certain virtual realities being shown to our youngsters. They want to qualify their standard of living, and that drags them towards this drug. Number 2, I have my very strong gut feelings. There is an international conspiracy behind it, because India is going to be a young country and it will remain young for another 20 years. Not only it is Udta Punjab, it is going to be entire Udta India, because this is a conspiracy on youngsters of India, who are teenagers, and if it is not being curbed, the situation will be worse.
I agree with him in a way that even the movies are, they are glamorizing this drug issue.
This culture.
And the way it was shown in Udta Punjab, maybe they have shown something bad happens to that actor. I haven't seen that movie, first of all. But what I saw during the trailers and all, it actually glamorizes and actually puts those stars in that position.
No, technically, to be fair, it does not glamorize. You should watch the film.
No, that's okay.
No, you should watch the film. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Right through the film, it shows people getting addicted. It shows people dying of addiction. It shows people ruining their lives completely at different ages.
what we
no,
do
to be
in
fair, to be fair,
I'm
you should
not
watch.
talking about
You should
movies.
watch a film before
I'll
you
watch the
decide
movie,
whether
but
it is
what
good or
I'm
bad.
saying is in
Yes.
schools is what we are doing. We are going in classrooms and classrooms, and when we go to a classroom, a 4th standard boy is unnaturally he's very quiet, or he's very robust, or he's fighting with somebody, or if he's not having an ADHD, then we think why he is doing that. Then we try to counsel the parents also. See, your child is this. But the 8th and 9th is where we find that you can actually identify the child if he's using.
How do you identify?
You know, because if the teachers have seen that child grow up till the 8th standard, and 8th standard, if the child is suddenly showing different traits of his behavior, then you know that there's something wrong.
Let me bring in D. Banerjee, who is retired IRS officer, who joins us from Kolkata. Mr. Banerjee, do you agree that this is a nationwide problem? Do you think that it's only in schools where children have access to thousands and thousands of rupees every month? How rampant is it, and how worried are you?
I think drug laws in India are quite strict. We have the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Act 1985, where it provides for punishment of 10 years, minimum punishment of 10 years to 20 years, which can be extended 20 years, with a fine of 1 lakh to 2 lakh rupees. This is for those who have caught with commercial quantity. Besides this, the NDPS Act also provides for forfeiture of property of the smuggler, of the drug trafficker. Then also, we have a Preventive Detention Act, illicit trafficking. For that, we have also the preventive detention, where a person can be detained by an executive order for 1 to 2 years. In spite of these laws, the enforcement agencies, basically their job is to stop the supply of drugs. This, I think, we have done quite well. But the demand reduction, that has to be taken care of. This has to be done by this is the job of basically the Ministry of Social Welfare. Not only Ministry of Social Welfare, parents, school teachers, they should create awareness also. School students are not much aware of the effects of drugs. And therefore,
can I add something?
Teachers should be sensitized. They should be trained.
Teachers should be
to create awareness among the students about the
more than the teachers. I think it's most important that the parents who are with the child every day need to be sensitized, because we've seen many of the cases.
The teachers' parents.
Right. We've seen majority of the cases. What happens is that the parents, even though they know it's somewhere in the mind that the child has started behaving differently, he is not his normal self, they do not want to accept the fact that my child can experiment with drugs. That psyche itself has to change. So
कि मेरा बच्चा
ऐसा कर नहीं सकता,
इतना अच्छा बच्चा है,
इतना अच्छा बच्चा है, the entire gully is doing that, but they will not be convinced of it, and only when it is beyond a certain level and it is very difficult to ignore it anymore, that is when the parents really have no other option.
Vikram Singh, go ahead.
Faye, like you very rightly said, that the parental proactive approach is an imperative. I know that my generation was brought up on 3 ingredients: caning, cold bath and bad food all the year rounds.
The definition of parenting you are changing.
And yes, indeed, they must have been changing.
Yes.
But my parents said that, look here, it is my job to see that you are a gentleman, and whatever be the price. Till the time I got engaged to be married, my pockets were searched every day, my books were searched for telltale signs or anything. Although I dare say that I was a good student, but every day my mother would search my pockets and rifle through all my diaries and all my textbooks for a telltale sign of anything.
Do you think this type of parenting will do now?
That is
no, but now Sagar, Dr. Mundana will say that's a violation of privacy of a teenager.
And that is not the best way that you can interact with your teenager. You have to take him in confidence. That won't work for everybody.
Proactive. You have to say that we have. Today, I am heading a university, sir, in the NCR area. We have.
So, Vikram Singh, is that why you went on to become DGP of Uttar Pradesh, because your pockets were searched and your parents kept you on the straight and narrow with a cane?
Well, yes, that was always the case, both in school and at home. And the Jesuit brothers were very unsparing in my time. And in my university, where I am heading now, we don't do drugs, we don't smoke, we don't eat gutka and pan masala, we don't drink. And that is a no-nonsense approach to. There is absolutely zero tolerance to drugs and any type of psychotropic substance.
All right, let me bring in the 2 parents who haven't spoken yet. Murli, who joins us from Hyderabad, is a concerned parent. Murli, obviously, I'm assuming for parents across Hyderabad, this was a story that shook you to your core because you suddenly realized the police sending a notice to every school in Hyderabad saying that every child is at risk.
Hello.
Yes, Murli, can you hear me?
Yeah. The moment we seen the scene on the TV screens, every parent of Hyderabad got worried. Like it's a very shocking news to see on the TV screens and papers. Every afraid of the things what our children. It's like what happened to our children tomorrow. What kind of news we need to receive from the schools or something else. They are worried about all this. By seeing, we don't have words to express in we are worried like anything. So the moment we seen that with our Akun Sabarwal has got some people arrested and after seeing that there are around 1,500 people, students are using the drugs. So every parent is like got shivering.
Murli, tell me something. How old is your child? And have you been told by the school or by anybody else right now the telltale signs, the red flags, how to tell whether or not your child is, is actually in contact with drug peddlers or has accessed drugs at any point? Do you have that information?
No, as of now, my daughters don't have that information. Like my daughter is just 12 years old, and she is with we have explained about these things after seeing by showing all these news in the TVs and newspapers. We ask them to be alert if somebody is asking you to take some chocolates or something else, but don't accept such kind of things wherever, even in shops or canteens of the schools or wherever it is. And recently we have seen some news from Nizamabad. It's in Telangana district.
Yes,
there are some chocolates has been supplied by the Nizamabad distributors. It has been caught recently. It's it's one more shocking news in Telangana. In fact.
Absolutely, and this is really scary. Achutya Rao is a child's right activist who joins us in Hyderabad. So one thing is to tell your child, yes, I will come to the rest of the panel. One thing is to tell your child, do not take chocolates from a stranger.
Anyone.
Yes.
But then there is the other risk of a child willingly buying something for which you require a completely different conversation. Achutya Rao.
Actually, this is very painful. Hyderabad has become a den for this mafia and drugs. And even this is broken out just because of a sincere officer, Mr. Akun Sabarwal. Otherwise, it could not happen. And now after this issue, very more painful is teachers and parents are fighting, shifting the responsibility on one another. And this is because of the teachers, parents are saying. The teachers are saying that it is the duty of the care and protection of the children, of their own children. But all the schools, 26, 27, whatever it is, and colleges or hi-fi schools, they have taken the lots of money, like in lakhs from as a fee, and they have failed to give care and protection to the children. Even as a Balala Hakkula Sangam, we filed this in the Human Rights Commission today, and we got issued the notices to Principal Secretary, School Education, as well as the Medical and Health Principal Secretary, because all the children is required to be given medical checkup and it is required treatment. And the more and the most important thing is why they are targeting children is they are getting easy money from the children, and all these children are from the economically well-to-do class.
I just like to say one thing.
And
let me just bring in Dr. Yusuf Merchant. Dr. Yusuf Merchant, go ahead.
Yeah, interrupt, please.
Dr. Merchant,
all
go ahead.
all the parents.
I just like to say one thing. In order to get a solution,
their children,
we have to stop
no
the blame game.
Chocolates or any other thing from the neighbor.
The parents have to stop blaming the school.
I want to listen to Dr. Merchant. Dr. Merchant, go ahead. Dr. Merchant, go ahead.
Is anybody listening really? I'm saying in order to find a solution, we have to stop the blame game. Parents have to stop blaming schools, schools have to stop blaming parents. Schools can help and parents can help. None are responsible that children are addicts, but both can help to prevent addiction. Schools can find out absenteeism, mark the kids as high-risk children. Parents can at least share one meal a day with their child and talk to them and try to bond with them. Because just by blaming people, the school thinks it's the parents' responsibility, the parents thinks it's the school's responsibility. I think it is the schools, the parents, yours, mine, it's everybody's responsibility. And we should work together to reduce the demand for drugs, because that is the only way out. The police is doing a very good job. They're reducing the supply, which means when the supply is less, the demand goes still higher. So I think we have to invest in drug demand reduction strategies, in prevention packages for different populations. And that I'm very, very sure about. We have no way to go. And secondly, there is no, I don't think there's a conspiracy for India or something. There's an international conspiracy for the entire youth of the world. Because all over the world, people are using drugs. And they don't need thousands of rupees. Meow, meow, you can take 50 rupees in your pocket and get blown for the next 1.5 hours. It is just that the drug that was caught was an expensive one. But there are, I told you there's a drug tsunami. I would say that at least 1 in 5 students in metro cities in the world have experimented with drugs for sure.
Wow, that's a shocking, you know, and I want to come back to something that Vikram Singh said, and I think this is important to answer for any parent who's watching. You know, Sagar Mandara, do you believe that looking through the pockets of your teenager, all their books, all their bags, all their clothes, is this the solution?
Not at all.
To be able to trace, you know, a problem?
Not at all. I think, as Dr. Merchant said, we need to first of all focus on the preventive strategies. Then we can think of having any kind of solution to this. It could be started off with the schools and with the parents. What the schools can do is, if we just check out all the syllabi of any class of today in anywhere in our country, there's hardly any mention of drug addiction. There's hardly any mention of the kind of side effects it has, the way it destroys your life. That is not there. Secondly, the schools have to start paying more attention. There has to be more role playing. There has to be more realistic depiction of what kind of problems these people will face, even if they experiment with it. The problem with drugs, again, I would like to tell, is that once you try to experiment it, it no longer is an experiment. It becomes a nightmare. You become addicted to it. So the schools have to do that. The parents have to be more proactive. Agreed, but the proactive approach has to be, they have to be more interactive with their kids. They have to try to understand what the child is going through. They have to understand that the child is going to have a basic curiosity, and that has to be satisfied through proper information and knowledge. Otherwise, the child will go and do something. So that has to be the approach. Checking everything, I think, is not going to work. That will increase the curiosity even more, and they'll find out newer and novel ways to
hide it in a friend's house. Also, you know, if we look at that footage, I want to run the footage again for the benefit of the parents who are watching. That drug peddler who spoke with our journalist showed us the size of the drug that we're talking about. He managed to fold it in to less than the size of a fingernail. Where are you going to look for something this small? How are you going to find it in your child's or your teenager's clothes or in their books or in their bags? It's going to be impossible to look through. And what you'll do, perhaps, like the psychologist is suggesting, create a relationship of animosity between you and your child where more things are being hidden. Peter's on the phone line from Bangalore. Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Good evening to all the panelists.
Yes.
Very happy to be here on the show. I would just like to say, you know, being a former addict myself, you know, I used to use a combination of drugs between 2007 and 2012, after which I've been completely clean and helping, you know, through various NGOs. And one I'd like to mention is that of Narcotics Anonymous, which has a you know, kind of operation where they go to schools and colleges and all that stuff. So, you know, I feel the main thing is, you know, that kids should, it's not a morality issue what people keep saying, you know, you use it, you're a bad person, you don't. So the minute we bring morality into it, you know, people feel more powerless. So I think it should be treated up very openly. Like, counselors need to get into these 12-step programs, find out, you know, that this is a proven way, this is a proven method of de-addiction, of getting people off drugs. It's worked for people worse, more addicted than I've seen in my own life. And, you know, and when we go to schools, we go to some very big reputed colleges, you know, I can't mention the names, but we go to some very big colleges, and over there too we see, you know, the management is struggling with these issues, and they say so much of our time is going, and then we have to come and let the kids come up themselves, you know. We can't bring in morality and policing into it. we have to say, it's okay, you tried something, you have problems, and like Dr. Yusuf was saying, there are ways to see it.
That's a good point. I have Shalini Mehra also on the phone line from Mumbai. Shalini Mehra, go ahead.
Hi guys, I'm actually from Delhi, not Mumbai.
Okay.
Got married in Delhi, but I had a friend, very dear friend, who was a drug addict during my college time, and right now also where I'm living in Mumbai, where my parents stay, and I have a 22-year-old boy who's doing engineering, and he comes and tells me, drugs are available everywhere on the road, on Linking Road. I just want to put up one question. What is our police doing? Why aren't they stopping this? You come at you go at around 2 o'clock or 3 in the morning, you get drugs, like
Right. That's an excellent question. It's a question we're going to try and answer. But first I want to ask RP Singh. RP Singh, there is a unanimous conclusion on this panel that while there's a lot of work being done by the police in prevention of supply, what is the government doing right now in bringing down demand? Where are the programs that we should be doing for our students, for our children, telling them about drugs, telling them not to use drugs, telling them to stay away from people who offer them drugs, to report when they find a friend or a classmate actually taking drugs? Where are all of those programs that the HRD ministry is supposed to be running, that schools are supposed to be running? There are just NGOs right now working in this area. Why is that? What is the government doing?
Okay, let me put it like this. When I was hearing through your all panelists, I thought I'll tell what we have undergone in our when I was in school. There used to be a class every
No,
week,
I want to know what the government is doing now, Mr. RP Singh. I'm sure that's a great story, but I want to know what the government is doing right now.
Give me a minute, Faye. Please give me a minute. Give me a second. Please allow me to complete. And that in divinity class, it was mandatory for everyone to attend, and in that everything was taken care. And also that in our times the TV never used to be the major thing. I mean, it used to be having meal with parents and then hearing these sakhis. I mean, that time sakhis or panchtantra stories by parents, and that was the bonding which helped us to understand our and brought morals in our system. Somewhere something is missing. It's not only parents, neither at the school. And yes, I accept more need to be done at the school level.
You're not
also
answering my question, Mr. RP Singh. What is the government doing was my question. Don't pass the buck back to the parents in the schools. The government has a responsibility for the future, for the youth of this country. What de-addiction plans, centers are you running for children right now? What information are you making sure is part of the syllabus? What sort of training are you providing right now to all schools and all teachers to be able to, like Dr. Merchant said, to be able to tell when there is a problem and to pick out that child and help them? Are you creating counselors inside of schools? Is there anything at all, even if you can give me one thing that the government is doing, because it's obviously a problem from Punjab down to Kanyakumari? What are we doing? Is the government doing anything at all?
But Faye,
as
we
I
have
told
the
you,
mechanism. We have parent teachers associations.
We need to make it mandatory for every school.
Mr. RP Singh, you keep telling me what we need to do. I want to understand what we are doing right now.
Yeah, we need to make it. I'm accepting it. No, I'm saying I'm accepting it that we need to work on it, and we need to make some moral teaching mandatory in school. And that's how, when the yoga has been started, the teaching of yoga, when it has started, is part of it. That it makes you stay away from drugs.
No, it doesn't.
Helps you to be physically fit and
please, Mr. RP Singh, this is an information, this is a show about giving information to parents. Please don't tell me that yoga makes you fit and will keep you away from drugs. Please, if you don't know what's happening, tell us you don't know. If you think the government is not doing enough, tell us the government is not doing enough. Your yoga program is not a solution. And I will refuse to allow you to pass on wrong information to parents who will now think, mera bachcha yoga karta hai, to drugs to lega hi nahi.
You are not aware. How do yoga help? How do yoga help young minds? How do
Dr.
yoga
Yusuf
help
Merchant,
Mr. Singh,
are you telling me Dr. Yusuf Merchant is the expert? Do people who practice yoga not take drugs? Is that a good way to make sure our children stay clean?
No, not at all. Not at all. Yoga is one thing, and keeping away from drugs is entirely another.
Dr. Merchant.
Exactly.
You say yoga
it's a
doesn't
wonderful
help to
thing.
keep
Yoga is a very good thing, but it's a separate thing.
No, this is hogwash. That's what it is. This is hogwash. To tell me that we have a yoga program to keep our children away from drugs is an excuse to not tell me that you have no program.
I think it should be taken up as how sex education was taken up in the schools. I mean, that's how...
Exactly. We need to make it a part of our syllabus.
That is what exactly. I mean, actually, it should be done.
Is there anything, Rajshri
parents.
Natu, that the Parent Teachers Association has been empowered to do right now?
Yes, because we were doing it. When our kids were in school and we were part of the PTA, we were doing it. We ourselves took a 6-month course with the psychiatrist, Dr. Hari Shetty, and we learned about these things. And then we went back to the schools and we started going through schools and telling the children.
Do you believe that this entire program that you're running right now would be stronger if it was empowered by the Education Department of various governments?
Of course it would be powered. We went to the Education Department for 10 years. We are going to the Education Department.
What response have you got?
We don't get so much response. We fought for sex education programs and now we are fighting for drug education programs.
There is nothing like
that. I mean, we have to teach them to make them aware.
Let me just one second. If we just give me a minute, I want to go to Dr. Yusuf Merchant. Dr. Yusuf Merchant, question 1. Does a yoga program in any way help our children? Question 2. What should we be doing?
No, I think, see, any form of health promotional activity, be it yoga, be it exercising, will contribute a bit. But the real issue is, our children are going to be told about drugs. Do you want to tell it? Does the government want to tell them about drugs? Or should they wait for the friends and the peddlers to say it?
Ideally,
we don't have a choice. We have to talk to them about drugs.
Yes, ideally a parent should talk to the child.
Because they are going to learn. People are going to talk to them about drugs in any case. Does the government want to talk to them or should the drug peddler talk to them?
Absolutely.
There is no point in again entering into a blame game. No parent, no teacher, we all are collectively responsible, including our judicial system, including our police implementation of law, NDPS and everything. And if somebody says that they don't believe it's an international conspiracy against the Indian youth particularly, I am a cop, I have reason to say that this drug is not only a simple thing, it has its roots abroad right up to the acts of terrorism. And where from these disruptive activities and terrorist activities get money, this is a big racket internationally. I have a specific point to make. Indian youths are being targeted because India is going through a phase of young age.
So then, where is the massive national plan to fight this conspiracy? Where is it? Why are we blaming our parents and our teachers? If you tell me that this is a huge conspiracy against the very sanctity of our country, against the future of our country, where is the national level defense plan to fight drug addiction among our teenagers? There isn't one. I want to bring in...
But 90% of Americans in schools are using drugs.
Okay.
90% of Americans have experimented drugs in school.
If you go by that statistics, there is...
No, we're derailing. Gentlemen, I don't want... This is not a channel about nationalism. To be fair, I care about every child and every parent who's watching right now. If you want to have a larger, conversation about, the future of the country, we will have it later on a different day, perhaps on a different channel. Here, we care about every individual who's watching and we want to solve their problems. I want to go back right now to D. Banerjee, who has his hand up. D. Banerjee, how do we stop this? How do we stop it? How do we protect our kids?
In my interactions with teachers of different schools, I've emphasized that the school should lay a lot of stress on extracurricular activities, especially sports and games. People who do not participate in sports and games, they are different. And they can easily be identified.
I agree.
Identified whether they are drug addicts or they are just plain simple lazy. So all schools must lay a lot of emphasis on school sports, games, extracurricular activities. So then only they can differentiate between the students. Further, parents should also give more time to their children.
See, there has to be a two-way approach to this. What the gentleman saying is, I think, very correct. People who engage and students who engage in sports, any kind of extracurricular activity, the chances that they will get into drugs is less. It's not zero, but it is less. So you have to keep a watch on people who are not, on students who are absolutely lazy or just laid back or in their own world. That can be done at the school level. Second thing is, which was suggested in Maharashtra itself, is that the education minister last year had suggested that every school must have a counsellor. Now that's a very basic thing that we can do. If we have a trained counsellor, as ma'am also said, some amount of training in drug addiction can help a long way in ensuring that.
But this has actually come out, this is there. Each school is having a counselor.
No, it's not. Majority of the schools in Maharashtra
because
don't have a
in
counselor.
2008 it was made compulsory.
You go to the doping and you will find in sports that the drug has been used like anything.
But that is
That is at a professional level, that is not at the school level.
But it is true, the children who do play sports or any other activity as such, in the artists who actually learn how to play instruments and all, they are less inclined to go into drugs.
There's one more thing. We have been talking about demand reduction. That is, I think, the most crucial thing. But the other thing is, we also do not have enough de-addiction centers in the country. They are very few, they are very sparse. And even if you want to get yourself treated, which the addict himself is not going to do, you're going to have the family members do that. You do not have enough centers to go to get treatment. That is also a major problem.
Secondly, the child is also, and the family is also targeted by the other parents and other people. Like, oh, uska ladka to drug addict hai, uski ladki to drug addict hai.
Exactly.
Thoda dur rehna. Even though if she is going through, even though she is going and taking treatment, the child is still targeted.
Absolutely. Let me just bring in some people who've called us on the phone line. Preeti is on the phone line. Preeti, go ahead.
Yeah. So Faith, thank you so much for bringing up such an ignored issue. It's so important in today, that we just can't ignore it. I know a boy who's just 13 years of age, and he's bold enough to go into drugs, but there's no place that he can go for counseling. In the sense, in the school, just for lip service, every school will provide a counselor. That counselor will just come once a week, show her face and go. She'll only spend 1 or 2 hours. That is the ground reality. But actually, when you have a child that's gone into drugs as early as 11 and 12,
right,
that child needs to be counseled at that age. Because now the child is 14 years old. He's already well versed with all the meows and all the other, drugs that he takes. There is no rehab center for a child below the age of 18, at least in Bombay, because if you go to the Kripa Foundation, they are excellent, but they are also adults.
Okay. So so Preeti, I get your point. De-addiction centers are really important, and I've just got a text message from our journalist who've told us that the drug that we were looking at on our screen is colorless, tasteless, and odorless. You cannot smell it. It doesn't have a color. And it doesn't have a taste. So the other risk that we have with this drug is spiking. It could be in sweets. It could be in drinks. It could be in food, cakes, anything that is given to children. After they've had it, after a couple of instances, they start to get addicted and then keep going back for more. This is how also children are turned into drug addicts, who are then constant and permanent clientele of people who are selling drugs. This entire story is so scary that it is a wonder that this is not right on top of our national conscience. Like rightly pointed out on this panel, this is the future of our country we're talking about. It is not a future that we have the luxury to squander away. Here are the scary things. These are not rich kids or these are not poor kids. These are all the kids that we have. Middle class, upper middle class, and otherwise. This is a collective responsibility of parents and teachers, the police, the law enforcement, society, and most of all, the government. We keep, and the judiciary, who should be bringing these people to book. We keep talking about how we are going to save our country from big issues that terrorize us, from big issues of terror. This should terrorize us. This should scare us and not allow us to sleep at night if we think that in some way our child aged between 12 and upwards would have access to something like this and would turn into an addict and lose their future. This could be any of our children today. How do we know? How can we tell? How do we save our children? This is our collective responsibility. This is the terror that we face in our country. This is our biggest risk as a country right now. We should be horrified. We should be completely terrorized by what we have seen on the screen today. And we should come together immediately to try and save our children. Save our children. A call going out to the topmost people in government and judiciary. Remember, the Supreme Court sent out a notice in January this year for stronger laws of drug enforcement. They haven't happened yet. Who's sitting on that notice and why hasn't that notice been paid more attention to? We need to put this on the top of our priority list. Nothing else is this important. Thanks for watching.